Changing your handlebars isn't something that you need to do all that often. The only time really is if they get damaged in a crash or in transit, or if you want to experiment with different sizes and shapes. But if you do need to change your bars, then it's actually a really simple process that you can definitely do at home. You don't need a bike stand. All you need is a set of Allen keys, preferably a torque wrench, a tape measure, some electrical tape, and then some new bar tape if you're going to change it, but you can actually reuse it. Right, it's the easiest thing to start with, and that's taking off your old bar tape. If you plan to reuse it, you've got to do it quite carefully, so just slowly unwrap it. But it's actually quite a good opportunity to put some new stuff on, and fresh bar tape makes a world of difference to the look of your bike. In this case, we'll reuse it, and we can probably make it look slightly better because Dan was the one who taped this last time, so we'll just make it look a bit neater. You should find that when you've taken the bar tape off, that you expose your brake and gear cables and they'll be taped onto the handlebar. So then just very carefully cut that tape, remove it, and then your cables can come through. Before we start undoing any bolts, this next step is really important if you're going to replace your handlebars with like for like. And that is that we're going to measure the position of our levers. It's really good to do it because if you get it wrong, then it can actually drive you slightly insane, particularly if each lever is a different height. So we'll just take a tape measure, stick it underneath the lever, and then take it to the end of the bars, 208 millimeters. If you're replacing it with different handlebars, obviously there's no point in doing that because the measurement will be completely useless. But like I say, like for like, definitely measure. The next step is to remove the levers themselves. For that, you need generally a 5mm Allen key, and then you need to peel back the brake hood and then access the bolt there. Now the exact way you do it will depend on the type of shifter you've got, but this is generally speaking the principle to do it. Sometimes you might find that you have to unwrap the brake hood from that direction and then you just undo it. As you can see, we're pretty much there now. All we've got to do is loosen these stem bolts here and then take the bars off. But if you're going to replace like for like with your handlebars, make sure you take a note of the angle at which you've got them set up if you're really particular about that. Right, before we replace the bars, we're just going to inspect the stem there. It's just a good idea to make sure there's no damage and that it's all clean and tidy. If you're replacing them with carbon handlebars as opposed to aluminium, then remember that you need to put fibre grip, which is like an abrasive paste on the bars, and then that increases the friction so that when you clamp it, the handlebars are less likely to slip, because don't forget, you can't over tighten this stem bit here. And some people, to be fair, put it on aluminium handlebars as well, but in this instance, we won't. Don't forget to prep your bolts of your stem as well, just a dab of grease. Right, when you're replacing the faceplate of the stem here, you've got to be really quite careful to make sure that it goes on straight. And by that, I mean, you don't completely tighten one side or another, and particularly not over tightening the top or the bottom first. So just screw each bolt in a little way and go around them in turn. Now I've tightened the stem up just enough so that the handlebars are kind of staying in place. When it comes to the positioning of them, most handlebars will have markings on the back there that help you get them centered. If you don't have these, then you do need to get your tape measure out again to make sure that the handlebars are straight in the middle of the bike. Right, that's centered there. The adjustment now of how steeply angled they are, we need to take the bike off the stand and get it on the floor. When we tighten the bolts here, that doesn't have to be the position the bars are left in. We'll take the bike for a spin in a little bit to make sure it's all good. But in essence, it is a personal choice where you set your handlebars. I quite like the top bit here to be close to horizontal. I find that that puts everything in the right place for me personally. Now our trusty torque wrench, set the bolt, remember, so it's just below the recommended torque, and always go for the lowest torque setting. So in this instance, the stem says 7 Newton meters, but the handlebars say 5, so we'll go at about 4.5. Now it's time to replace the shifters. You've got a choice here with your cables, whether you tape both of them onto the inside of the handlebars or one on the outside and one on the inside. Now I like both mine on the inside, but Mike, the owner of this filthy felt, has got his set up. So it's one on the outside and one on the inside. And you can see on the shifter there, there's 2 places for the cable to sit. And because this one's in the outer one, that means it has to go on the outside of the bars. Do the bolt up just so that it's tight enough for the shifter not to move, but we've still got a bit of play in it there so we can tweak the position. And then do the same with the other shifter. At this stage, if you're replacing like for like handlebars, then obviously we can get our tape measure out and then replicate the exact position using that measurement here. But in this case, like we've already said, these bars are actually very different. And so to begin with, we'll get the levers in the right place just by eye, and then we'll take the bike off the stand and take it for a little spin to make sure that we think we've got it right. There's no real right or wrong, by the way, with the angle of your levers. Personally, I like a smooth transition from the bars to the lever, and I tend to go kind of flat to slightly up. When you think you are happy with the angle, then we definitely need to get the tape measure out now. And then measure both sides to make sure they're in exactly the same place. When it comes to tightening your levers, you don't actually have to do them that tight. You always want to just be able to move them in the event of a crash, because that'll stop them getting damaged, hopefully, if you fall off. Now, before we go any further with replacing the bars, I think now is the perfect time to take it for a little spin, being a bit careful obviously because your brake cables are flapping around, but just to make sure that you are happy once and for all with this position, because once it's taped up, you can change it, but it's a bit of a pain. So let's take it for a spin. Okay, it's time to tape our cables back into position now. And like we mentioned earlier on, we've got ours currently set up one on either side of the handlebars. I like to have both of them quite a long way down, just so that when I'm holding the handlebar in the right position, that the cable isn't going to sit on any kind of uncomfortable bits. So that there will do the trick. And it's really important to get them sitting really tightly in the crook there as well, because otherwise you can get quite a spongy braking because of that. Right, all that's left to do now is to replace our old bar tape or stick some new stuff on. Now, we've already got 2 videos on the channel. Yes, 2 videos showing you how to tape your handlebars. One, which you can get to up there, is how to tape your handlebars with a pro mechanic. And then that one down there is how to tape your handlebars with Dan. I'll leave it up to you which ones you choose. Laugh at that! Or maybe some singing!
That was pretty ridiculous.